Hi friends, welcome to episode 2 of the Truth2Lies podcast. I'm excited to be with you. I'm Steve Johnson, 28-year retired police investigator, detective and consultant on criminal cases. And today I want to discuss with you linguistic evidence. Now, linguistic evidence is actually all around us, and depending on the text or the context of the conversation, it's going to be a little more important in some conversations than others. For those of you that are interviewing job applicants for employment, it's going to be very important for you to recognize linguistic evidence. There's things that you might not be able to ask that applicant, but you're going to want to know. And same with you criminal investigators, obviously very important. There's things within the language that you absolutely need to know. And this doesn't apply only to those situations. This linguistic evidence applies to everyone that wants to know the truth, whether you are a professional interviewer, investigator, or you're just having a conversation with the neighbor down the street, your doctor, your vet, the salesman, whoever it is. There's all kinds of applications for this. Now, in linguistics, I often talk about linguistic evidence and latent content. And I want to talk a little bit about what that is. And I'm going to give you an example using the Larry Millete interview. Larry's wife, Maya, disappeared in January, early January of 2021. Her body still has not been recovered, but about a month ago or so, Larry was arrested. Before I get into that, let me talk about the forensic aspect of investigations and the forensic aspect of linguistics. It's very similar. During my 28-year police career, I've been at literally thousands of crime scenes. And most of those scenes, especially the ones that are a little bit bloody, have some biological evidence, we put booties on at a minimum, and oftentimes we put on the full, what we call bunny suits, the full white jumpsuits. And the reason for that is that we did not want to introduce anything into the crime scene from our own shoes, our own person. We wanted to keep that crime scene sterile, the way that we entered it. And also we didn't want to bring anything from the crime scene out on our own shoes or clothing, things like that. We wanted to stay clean and sterile when we came out of that scene. So the important thing is we didn't want to contaminate that scene. And while we were in those crime scenes, we often looked for latent evidence, meaning the evidence that is hiding in plain sight. It's just that you can't see it unless you apply a certain forensic method or processes or steps in order to make that evidence visible, come to light. And latent fingerprints are the easiest to understand. There's latent fingerprints every time we touch something. I touch this mouse, and you can't see my fingerprints on the mouse, but they're there. It's from the oils on my hands, and it leaves an impression of my fingerprint every time I touch something. And same with my cup here. There's latent fingerprints on that cup that you really can't see them unless my hand was really dirty, such as kids' smudges. Sometimes you can see the fingerprints and all their smudge and dirt. Sometimes we can see a fingerprint in a bloody crime scene. There's actually a bloody fingerprint. But most of the time, those latent prints are not visible. And then we have to apply certain processes, either graphite type dust or super glue. There's all kinds of things we can do, and it makes those fingerprints actually come to light. We can see them, and then we can either photograph them or lift them and use them in our investigation. So same thing applies with the linguistic process, the forensic linguistics. We apply certain methods and processes, and we tether ourselves to certain tried and true principles that are related to human nature, and we apply them, and we make the latent content come to light. I often say when we go into an interview or we're talking with someone that we believe what they're telling us. Now, we're not necessarily going to believe the story they're telling us, but they will give away information that they don't realize that they are giving away. That's what we believe. That is very strong, credible information if you understand it and know what to listen for and look for. Larry Millete did just that when he interviewed, and that's what I'm going to get into in a little bit. So this latent content it might not only be the deception that we're looking for, but oftentimes when people speak or write about an incident, what happened, tell me what happened, or tell me about yourself in a job interview, and they're writing about themselves, writing about the incident, whatever it is, there are things that they are not going to want to tell you, but they nevertheless will reveal if you know what to look for. So it might be not just the deception, but it might be that they have a drug addiction in a crime situation, the context of a crime that we're investigating. They often give away the time of the crime, the time that they committed that crime. There's all kinds of information that's there for them to give away. Things about their past experiences, childhood traumas, abuses. It may be that they are currently an abusive person, that maybe they're suffering from PTSD, some mental illnesses. There's just all kinds of information. If you know what to look for, it's in the words. And that's what's so much fun about what we do, the statement profiling. It's just, there's nothing better. We're so excited every time we get a new statement because we're going to unwrap this stuff. It's like going into a puzzle. We're looking to see if we can solve this and what information is hiding there that we can't readily see. It's not readily apparent, but when we apply certain processes, it makes it come to life. And it's just a really neat thing. So that's what latent content is, which is linguistic evidence. Now, you're going to hear me talk about linguistic evidence a lot in future episodes. Today I want to focus on the Larry Millete interview. So Maya Millette disappeared in early January of 2021. Her body still has not been recovered. She was reported missing, I believe it was on the 9th of January. It was a Saturday. Her family came over. I think that was a day, don't hold me to that, but it was very close to that. And it was actually her family, her sister, that reported her missing. And it was after they came over to the house, and Larry said that Maya was, he and Maya were sleeping in separate bedrooms, and Maya was allegedly sleeping in a bedroom downstairs. The door was locked. Larry found the key, opened the door, and Maya's gone. Okay, so she's out. It's unknown where she was at that point in time, but she wasn't there. So Larry had all kinds of speculations as to where she could have gone, hiking or out jeeping or with her friends, wine tasting or whatever it was. But she's never been found. Now, shortly after she was reported missing, Larry did an interview, a phone interview with a local news station. So this reporter is asking Larry questions about Maya and their situation. And fortunately for us, Larry did this phone interview, which obviously contains linguistic evidence, latent content that Larry does not know that he's revealing, but nevertheless it's there. And that's what I want to point out, just some of that information that Larry is revealing. What I'm going to do is play you the first couple minutes of that interview, okay? And the reporter is going to ask Larry about the last time that he saw May. The last time he saw May. And he's going to tell you that it was Thursday, and you're going to hear all kinds of what we call word salad from Larry. He's going to get a little twisted up. Okay, that's a clue. When you have word salad, that's a clue that something's going on in his brain. That when people recall things that are experiential, that are true, it's very easy to recall it, to repeat it, to state it, and there's no equivocation. It just is what it is. And when you start hearing people having to equivocate, explain things, get twisted up, and all kinds of things that we're going to go into with Larry, that's a sign that something is wrong, and that there's linguistic evidence there, and all we need to do is just go in and apply some processes and pick it apart, and we'll have the real story. That's the story that we're going to believe, and it's exactly what Larry's telling us. Okay, so I'm going to play that clip, and then we'll break it down just a little bit. Here it is.
When did you first notice that May was missing?
Saturday morning.
Okay, and tell me.
Her parents came by.
Mm-hmm. Just tell me, kind of walk me through like the last time you saw her and what was going on.
Thursday night. Like we got into a kind of an argument. And we've been having like problems. For about a year. We've kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I gave her space.
So just tell me. So you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday.
So she didn't take a vehicle.
No.
No one saw her leave.
No, but on Friday, I could still hear her, but I didn't physically see her when I got home. But that's like normal too, because we have lots of bedrooms. It's a 2-story house, and we kind of like, well, I give her space. So, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or visually see her, but for me, it's Friday night. I can hear her like wrestling around, making dinner for herself in another bedroom, and I'm sleeping with the kids in another bedroom.
Okay.
So upstairs and she's downstairs, kind of deal, kind of like a roommate thing. It's kind of like giving each other space. Well, sure. I don't need the space. She always wants the space.
Got it. So it was like Friday, and then you left or went somewhere, and then came back, and she wasn't there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I left her with my 2 girls because they do their homeschool. Mm-hmm. And then I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. We can hear her downstairs, like after I'm done giving the kids baths and feeding them and everything. And on Saturday morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. I found the keys to the bedroom, and I opened it, and she was already gone. So maybe she went to a morning sunrise hike, because she didn't go jeeping, because that's one of her other hobbies, the Jeep group. And, she would have taken that. So assumed maybe one of her friends picked her up, and, they went hiking or wine tasting. She likes to go wine tasting in Temecula. That's her other thing. Or brunch, early morning. Yeah. After that, at night, we're, okay, she hasn't come home yet.
Okay, I love that this reporter did this interview with Larry, and she asked some great questions that really focused his mind. In fact, the questions that she asked kind of created a little mind virus for Larry, and I'll show you what I mean. The reporter asked, she said, just tell me, kind of walk me through the last time you saw her and what was going on. And so Larry responds, Thursday night, we got into a kind of an argument. We've been having problems for like about a year, kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I give her space. And so what happened there was Larry answered the question Thursday night. And he said we got into a kind of an argument, meaning he's not going to say that it was a full-blown argument. He wants to downplay it. That's what he's doing, the kind of an argument. It's not really an argument, it's kind of an argument. All right, so we're on high alert now. Now, what's happened, the next part of what Larry says is an unsolicited explanation as to why they got into this argument. And what he says is, we've been having like problems, and you notice he downplayed that a little bit too, right? The like problems for about a year, kind of like been up and I know a lot of people use the kind of, and Larry's from the islands, and I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, this language is used a lot there. And so I get it, and I'll take that into context and give him a pass for some of that. But without knowing Larry's normal speech pattern, I have to call it out that, especially the major stuff, especially the argument thing, that he downplayed the argument. So he's saying kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I give her space. So what he's saying is there, yeah, I just told you I got into an argument, that we got into a kind of an argument. But here's why. Because we've been having a lot of problems for about a year. Now, he gave you a time frame here that his brain went back for a full year. That's when all this started, a year ago. So he gave you a time frame there. And you know that there's huge sensitivity because he's explaining why they got into this argument. And note, at the end of that explanation, he said, after that, I give her space, meaning I'm the good guy. I give her space. He's not saying that she gives me space or we give each other space. Nothing like that. It's just solely him. He's the good guy. Always note when people build themselves up as a good person, when there's really no expectation of that, really no need to do that, it just kind of comes out of the blue, that they typically know that they've done something wrong, that they need to rehabilitate themselves linguistically. They need to be seen in a good light. We all like to be seen in a good light. So that's very common. People like to be seen in a good light, and they like to be recognized as such. When we do something wrong, we don't want to be seen in a bad light. We don't want people to know that we've done something wrong. And so we'll kind of build ourselves up to be a better person than what actually has would be reflected from if we did something wrong. Okay? So I give her space. So the interviewer says, so just tell me, so you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house? And Larry says, yes, briefly. And the word briefly qualifies the yes. He also, when he did that, his voice inflection went down. Now, I don't know if he looked away from the phone or what happened there, but I do know that it was like as if he wanted to not really speak that out loud. Yes, briefly. So he qualified how much time he spent with Maya when he saw her, that it was actually in the house. And he said, yes, briefly. So it raises the question, well, the reporter was the one that said actually in the house, and Larry said briefly. So was there a time that he saw her outside the house? That's the natural question. So I know he was in there, according to his words, his language, briefly with Maya. Did something happen outside that was, there was maybe some more time spent with her outside the house? Now, she may not have been in good shape. I don't know that. But when's the last time you saw her? Was it actually in the house? Yes, briefly. Okay. So here's what's going to happen here. This reporter has focused Larry's attention to the last time that he saw Maya. Now, she actually contaminated the question. This is the mind virus, is what she did. She focused it. And so now that Larry's mind is focused on the last time he saw her, if he's lying about the last time he saw her, there's going to be a natural physiological response within his brain and body. The brain is going to feel the stress. It doesn't like it. It's not going to like it. The brain's default setting is to tell the truth. So if there is deception, it creates stress, which physiologically transcends to the rest of the body in all kinds of ways. And the body doesn't like it, okay? So there's this interesting phenomena called carryover stress. If Larry is deceptive and has stress about the last time that he saw May, it could carry over into the next part of the conversation. So look what happens here. So the reporter says, so she didn't take a vehicle? All right, so the reporter has bought what Larry said in a way, but she's now refocused to May taking a vehicle. Look what Larry does here. He says, no. He answered the question. Now here comes the carryover stress. He says, but on Friday, I could still hear, like, I didn't physically see her when I got home. And I'm going to stop there for just a second. So Larry answered the question about the vehicle, which was a very brief answer. And then he couldn't get off the stress that he was feeling about the last time he saw May. And so his brain went back to it. That's called carryover stress. He's still feeling it, and he's still having to deal with it. He has to do something with it to alleviate the stress. And so linguistically, he is going to do some things to minimize, to rehabilitate himself, to make his story believable. Whatever it is, he's got to make it such that he feels better about it. So he says, no, but on Friday I could still hear, like, I didn't physically see her when I got home. And that physically word really bothers me. Out of all the words he could say or pick or the way he could phrase this, he said physically. So he's introduced this physical aspect of this, all right? But now what he says is, but that's like normal too, because, you know, we have lots of bedrooms and two-story house, and, you know, we kind of like, well, I give her space, okay? And then he goes on, and I'm going to come back to it. So he says, he portrays this as normal, that he saw her briefly Thursday night, and he says Friday he could still hear her. Now, instead of saying on Friday I could hear her, he says I could still hear her. So this is carryover. It's an indication that there's carryover from what? Thursday night. I could still hear her. And now he's convincing us as to how he could still hear her. What was happening that he could still hear her? And he qualifies this. He says, I didn't physically see her when I got home, but let me tell you why that's okay. But that's like normal too, because, and here's this unsolicited explanation, because, you know, we have lots of bedrooms in a two-story house. He goes back to, and I give her space. I'm the good guy. That tells me that something has happened in there. Now he's had to portray himself as a good guy twice in the midst of this thought process of the last time that he saw May. That is not a good sign. This is an indication that it's highly likely the last time he saw May was Thursday night, but what he's telling us now about her, about him being able to hear her in the house Friday morning, and how normal it is that he could hear her, and the reason why, because we have a big house, and we have lots of bedrooms, it's a two-story house, and that, hey, by the way, I'm a good guy. It's highly likely that Thursday night, early Friday morning, is the last time that he or anyone was going to see May. Now it gets better. Now he says, so, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or visually see her, but for me, it's Friday night. Okay. He used the word physically. That's twice now that he's used that. There's something definitely, there's going to be a physical aspect to this. The thing that makes this even more significant is that he self-censored. He caught himself saying physically, and then he said visually. But what he did is he dropped the pronoun I. He didn't say, I see her, or I saw her. He didn't use I at all. He dropped it. I is one of those pronouns that we use without any thought. They are instinctive. They are so reliable. They're reliable when we use them, and they're reliable when we don't use them, meaning when the person ejects himself psychologically by dropping the pronoun I, there's a reason for it. He does not want to be associated with what he's saying. He wants distance from that. He doesn't want to commit to what he's saying, and that's what's going on here. So he's not committing to seeing her visually. He says, but for me, it's Friday night. I can hear, now note that how he goes into present tense here, not what he heard, but what he hears. I can hear like rustling around, making dinner for herself, and another bedroom, and sleeping with the kids in another bedroom. So upstairs, and she's downstairs, and he didn't say, so I'm upstairs. Again, he dropped it. He psychologically ejected himself. And she's downstairs, kind of like a roommate thing, kind of like giving each other space. Well, I don't need the space. She always wants her space. So again, he reverted back to this good guy thing, which now that's the third time in this short little period of time. Something happened in that period of time right there. So the over-explaining and normalizing the event, explaining why you should believe this, the unsolicited explanation, the good guy, him ejecting himself psychologically by dropping the pronoun I. This is all linguistic evidence. This is the latent content that we have here. Not only is deception, but he is telling us, and I believe him, that the last time he saw May was actually Thursday night. All this other stuff in there is superfluous about how Friday, that he can hear her like rustling around, which is an interesting word as well, rustling around. And it makes me wonder if May might have been alive for a period of time while she maybe was incapacitated and couldn't go anywhere. Language like that, it's very telling, and it's one of those things that we call brain leakage. That they will use these type of words and the type of language that reflects their perception of the reality and what it is that they know, what it is that actually occurred. Even though they don't want to come out and tell us, he's not going to obviously come out and tell us that, yeah, last time I saw her was Thursday when I killed her. He's not going to say that. But from all this, we can say that this guy has guilty knowledge. And why do we know that? Because he's portraying this as a normal event. He's giving us unsolicited explanations, which are convincing in nature. And really, all he had to do was answer the question and say, Thursday night, we were having a little bit of an argument, and I went to my room, she went to hers, and just call it quits. And then answer the question about the vehicle. So she didn't take her own vehicle? No, a vehicle is still here, so one of her friends must have picked her up. And leave it at that. But he couldn't do that. The stress in his brain is so significant it carries over and he has to explain it. It tells me that there's something going on there that he has to make himself feel better about, because his brain is knocking on his head and saying, hey, they're not going to believe you, so you better make this believable. And it's something the reporter wouldn't even have asked and may not even have thought to ask. But Larry taught us that this is something that is so significant to him that he had to explain it, had to normalize it, had to eject himself psychologically from it, had to portray himself as a good guy, never portrayed May as a good person, not once. And the linguistic evidence becomes very apparent. This interview goes on and on and on and reveals a lot more linguistic evidence, but you can see my point here, how this latent content comes to life. When you apply these different things, these different principles, it makes this content come to life. Now, months ago, early in the year of 2021, shortly after this interview aired, I did a show with Chris McDonough, on the interview room with Greg Cooper and Dean Jackson, and on that show we broke down this statement this interview that Larry gave, and I called it out then that Maya was likely killed late Thursday night, early Friday morning. Okay. That would have been Thursday night, would have been January 7th. Friday would be the 8th. That was a pretty definite timeline in my mind from the analysis of what Larry said. He's the one that told me that. He's the one that taught me that. Now, Larry has since been arrested, and there was a press conference held by the Chula Vista Police Department and the San Diego District Attorney's Office. And so the San Diego District Attorney spoke about some facts of the case that she was able to share with the public. I'm going to play you just a few minutes of that press conference, and in that you will hear her tell us that May's phone, the last time that there was any activity on May's phone was Friday morning at 1:25 a.m. Okay, she confirmed the analysis. She confirmed what Larry told us. She confirmed the linguistic evidence, the latent content that came to life. As soon as Larry spoke to this reporter, he left behind that linguistic evidence, and all we had to do was just apply a few things and make it come to light. And then, through the investigation, this was all confirmed. Take a listen to a couple minutes of that press conference.
It also turns out, and this is from extensive search warrants, everything is done by the book, extensive search warrants that were done by Chula Vista Police Department with the help of our team, that uncovered a trail of things that were happening that were of great concern. Larry was trying to hold on to May, and he resorted to contacting what are called spellcasters. I've never had a case where that was involved. These spellcasters would be asked to make May want to stay in the relationship. But as December of 2020 came, those messages to spellcasters were a lot more threatening. He was asking for May to become incapacitated, for May to be in an accident, to have broken bones so that she could stay at home, thus displaying his homicidal ideations to harm May. The January 7th date was very clear. She not only had called the divorce lawyer, but she had set an appointment for January 12th to meet with the divorce lawyer in order to carry out the divorce. She wanted that date and not Friday, January 7th, because their daughter had a birthday that she had planned, and again, the kids were the center of her world. And she did not want to do anything to disrupt that birthday that was going to take place on January 10. The last text message that May sent was on January 7th at 8:15 p.m. to her family. She sent that on Facebook Messenger. That's another set of warrants that were done. In the afternoon of January 7, Larry Millete sent a really telling text. He said, "I think she wants me to snap, and I'm shaking inside, ready to snap." At 9:21 p.m. on January 7th, Larry screenshot from his account cryptocurrency amounts of money that were in his cryptocurrency to his two daughters, ages 11 and 9. May's phone activity stopped on January 8th at 1:25 a.m. On January 9th, Larry Millete's spellcaster messages that had been sent on a daily basis turned from May to wanting to punish a man that he blames for the failed relationship. This was before Mary Kreese had called the police about May being missing. Now we go to November 8th. Security video retained by Chula Vista PD showed the defendant on January 8th at 5:58 a.m. in the morning moving his Lexus GX460, a black Lexus, with the license plate that bears the name Melanie. The Lexus was already backed into the driveway, but Larry Millete repositioned that Lexus where the back of the Lexus is in the entrance of that garage. He repositioned it where no video camera can capture whether a body was put in the back of the Lexus or not. But based on that positioning, we're not able to see that vantage point. At 6:45 a.m., after repositioning the car at 5:58 a.m., Larry leaves and he does not return to the house for 11 hours and 21 minutes. He leaves his phone behind so that there is no ability to track the GPS or location on the phone.
So there you have it. The linguistic evidence confirmed through the investigation, through the search warrants on Larry's phone, and there was all kinds of interesting things going on in that case. A lot of other stuff that we're not privy to at this point, but that's the linguistic evidence. If you want to know more, check out my website, Truth2Lies.com. Check out our courses. They are the best. If you love statement analysis, I've made it as easy to understand as anyone can. You're going to love these courses. They are not only eye-opening, they're super insightful. It's powerful. The statement profiling, the linguistic statement analysis, one of the most powerful investigative and interview tools that's out there. Go to the website, Truth2Lies.com. Until next time, speak great things, be great, do great things. We all need each other to make the world a better place, not only for yourself, but for your family, those around you, those you work with. We all need each other, especially in this day and age. I'll see you next episode.